Mara kissed the Mafia king on wet pavement, while his own men rushed toward them. When she pulled away, someone called the plus-size parking officer, desperate. But she was already reading the license plates behind Luca's shoulder. The third SUV carried a municipal permit issued to another vehicle that morning. "Don't look back," she murmured. "That car is following your route." Luca seized his captain when the man reached for her. Seconds later, a tracker was found under the chassis, and Mara's employee login appeared in the convoy leak. They had until 1:14:00 p.m. Mara kissed Luca Valenti on wet pavement while 3 of his own men rushed toward them. Rain slid down the back of her teal dress and soaked the knees she had dropped onto beside him. But she kept one hand against his cheek for 3 seconds, longer than any sane woman would have dared. "Third SUV," she whispered against his mouth. "Don't look at it. It's following your route." Then she pulled away. Luca did not ask why a plus-size city parking officer he had never spoken to had just kissed him in the middle of Greyhaven. He looked only at her. That was exactly what Mara needed. Behind his shoulder, the third black SUV remained half a car length from the curb, its windshield reflecting the pharmacy sign across the street. The municipal permit in the lower corner looked ordinary, unless someone spent 6 years checking permits for a living. Mara had. The sticker leaned 4 degrees left because its adhesive had been lifted and pressed down again. More important, she had written a citation against that permit number before breakfast. It had been attached to a gray utility vehicle across town. "Boss." The first man reached them. He was broad through the shoulders. Dark coat, open despite the rain. His left hand moving toward Mara. "Get away from him." Mara stood before he could touch her. "Don't." His eyes moved over her dress, her wet hair. Then back to Luca. Contempt arrived before recognition. "What is this? Some cheap mistress with a city badge?" Mara did not answer the insult. She pointed past him. "That permit belongs on a gray utility van, registered for commercial loading. It does not belong on your SUV." The man turned his head. Luca did not. "Silas," Luca said. "Leave her alone." Silas Kerr ignored the warning and reached for Mara's wrist. Luca caught him before his fingers closed. The movement was fast and brutally efficient. Luca twisted Silas's arm down against the hood of the nearest car. Bone gave with a dry crack beneath the rain. Silas grunted and dropped to one knee, clutching his left wrist. The other 2 men stopped instantly. Luca released him. "I told you not to touch her." Mara stared at Luca. She had known his name before she crossed the street. Everybody in Greyhaven knew it. Luca Valenti owned freight companies, warehouses, restaurants, and enough politicians' attention to make ordinary people lower their voices when he entered a room. Newspapers called him a businessman when lawyers were present, and a Mafia king when they wanted clicks. Mara had never been confused about which version was closer to the truth. That was why she had kissed him, instead of shouting. If someone inside his own detail had planted the cloned permit, she had no idea which of the 3 men approaching him could hear her warning safely. Luca finally looked toward the SUV. "Open it." One guard moved. Silas held his injured wrist against his chest. "Boss, we don't know who she is." "I know exactly who she is," Mara said. "The woman who gave your vehicle a citation this morning." Silas looked at her sharply. "You ticketed that SUV?" "No." "That permit." The guard crouched beside the rear wheel, swept a light beneath the chassis, then stopped. "Mr. Valenti, He reached under the frame with a gloved hand and removed a black device, no larger than a deck of cards. A tiny green indicator blinked beneath the plastic cover. Mara felt the night shift inside her brain click into place. The duplicated permit was not camouflage for parking enforcement. It was camouflage for movement. Luca took the device without touching its exposed surfaces. "Tracker, active," the guard said. "Not one of ours." Silas pushed himself upright, face pale from the wrist injury. Then she knew where to tell us to look. Mara turned toward him, because whoever placed that permit wanted the vehicle to look boring, or because you placed both. Luca's attention shifted between them. There was no softness in his face now. Enough. A black sedan had stopped farther down the block. Another Valenti man approached, carrying a security tablet. We pulled the preliminary route access report. He hesitated when he saw Mara. "Say it," Luca ordered. The man rotated the screen. A list of plate numbers appeared beside access times and employee identifiers. Mara recognized the format only because her own city credentials were printed across the bottom. Reeves. "Maraji." Silas gave a humorless laugh. "There's your answer." Mara stepped closer without touching the tablet. Her employee account had searched 3 vehicles connected to Luca's convoy over the previous 8 days. Beneath those searches sat an exported movement report marked with the same identifier. Her name, her credentials, her apparent trail. Luca studied the screen. Then Mara. The partial relief she had seen when the tracker appeared vanished. "Did you run these plates?" "Some of them." "Why?" "Because I kept seeing permits where they didn't belong." Silas lifted his uninjured hand. "Convenient." Mara ignored him. "Pull the original city citation images. Not screenshots. The server copies." Luca checked his watch. 10:17. One of the guards said. "The convoy has to clear the bonded district at 11:40 or the transfer window closes." Luca's gaze stayed on Mara. "Can you prove what you just told me before? Then I can prove what I saw." "That wasn't my question." Mara straightened. "Then ask a better one." For the first time, something changed in Luca's expression. Not amusement. "Attention." He handed the tracker to the guard. "Bag it. Isolate. The 3rd SUV. Nobody wipes a system. Touche à permis. Or changes a vehicle assignment without my approval." Then he looked at Mara. "Come with us." "Am I under arrest?" "No." "Then nobody takes my phone, my badge, or my city tablet." Silas started to speak. Luca cut him off. "Agreed." Mara looked once at the 3rd SUV, then at the security tablet carrying her name. She had planned to be at her sister's birthday dinner 20 minutes ago. Instead, she stepped toward Luca's waiting car. "I'll come because somebody used municipal records to hide that tracker. Not because you ordered me." Luca opened the rear door himself. "Understood." As Mara climbed inside, the security man refreshed the access report. A new line appeared beneath her name. Her employee account had not merely searched Luca's vehicles. It had accessed the final convoy folder less than an hour earlier. The garage doors closed behind Luca's convoy at 10:31. Sealing Mara inside a Valenti freight maintenance building, 3 blocks from the river. She noticed cameras before people, exits before furniture, and vehicle plates before faces. It was not courage. It was habit. 6 years of parking enforcement had trained her to read a street the way other people read a room. A black sedan with a disabled placard hung from the mirror but no matching plate annotation. A delivery van with fresh paint around one rear hinge. An SUV parked 12 inches over a yellow safety line, despite 4 empty spaces beside it. Details accumulated without permission. Luca led her toward a glass-walled office overlooking 6 service bays. Silas followed several steps behind. His left wrist already immobilized in a rigid temporary brace applied by the company medic. His face had gone hard and colorless, but he said nothing about the injury. Mara preferred that to an apology he did not mean. A technician placed the security tablet on the conference table. Her account made 17 plate inquiries in 8 days. Silas sat carefully. 17. Mara removed her wet coat and draped it over the back of a chair. How many parking citations do you think I touch in a week? These were Valenti vehicles. Some were. Some weren't. Silas leaned forward. You expect us to believe you accidentally developed an interest in the boss's convoy. I expect you to understand that license plates are not people. Luca remained standing. Show me. Mara looked at him. I need my supervisor. Why? Because anything I show you from a city system without authorization becomes contaminated the moment your people copy it. If you want evidence instead of a story, Denise Park verifies it from the municipal server. Silas laughed once. You're giving rules to Luca Valenti. Mara turned to him. I'm explaining why your evidence will be worthless if you bully the wrong person into breaking chain of custody. The technician stopped typing. Luca pulled out a chair. Call her. Mara used her own phone. Denise answered on the 4th ring, with the weary irritation of a woman who had supervised city employees for 23 years. Mara, if this is about tomorrow's zone rotation, I already sent it. It isn't. I need you to verify citation 84721 without changing or forwarding the source file. Silence followed. Why? Because somebody duplicated the permit in the vehicle photograph. Another pause. Denise knew Mara well enough to hear when details mattered. Halt. Luca watched Mara while the line clicked into the municipal system. Mara ignored him and opened the small paper planner she carried in her purse. Her father's rehabilitation schedule occupied the lower half of the week in blue ink. Tuesday. Physical therapy at 4. Thursday. Neurology at 9. Tonight. Medication pickup after work. Ew. Then her sister's birthday dinner. She crossed nothing out. Her father would notice if she missed the pharmacy. He noticed everything since the stroke had forced him to depend on routines he once mocked. Mara Denise returned. Citation exists. Uploaded 8:12 this morning. Original image is on the server. No edits. Vehicle, gray, Mercer, utility van, New Jersey commercial plate. Permit number GHC 4419. Mara looked across the glass wall toward the quarantined black SUV. That's the permit on their 3rd vehicle. Denise's voice sharpened. Then Mara glanced at Luca. I'll explain later. You'd better. Can you confirm the permit image angle, Mara? Please. Denise exhaled. Top edge is higher on the passenger side. Lower left corner is creased. Mara pointed toward the garage floor. The SUV outside has the same crease. The technician looked through the glass, then enlarged a security photograph taken 10 minutes earlier. The lower left corner of the permit was folded along the same diagonal line. Silas said, a copied sticker would copy the crease. Exactly. Mara faced him, which means whoever cloned it had access to the original closely enough to reproduce damage. Not just a permit number from a database. Luca asked. "Why did you search my vehicles?" Mara ended the call only after Denise confirmed the original remained locked on the city server. Because this morning wasn't the first mismatch. She opened her planner to the previous Thursday. Small plate numbers ran down one margin beside notes that would have meant nothing to anyone else. Last week, I cited a black crossover on Mercer Street. 2 days later, the same permit number showed up on a delivery van in North Harbor. Different plate. Different company. Same permit. I assumed data entry duplication and checked the public enforcement record. Then another one appeared. Silas looked at the handwritten numbers. "You keep private records of vehicles." Mara closed the planner. "I keep dispute references. Drivers. Challenge citations. If I can't remember why I wrote one, I shouldn't expect them to pay it." That habit had made her unpopular with co-workers who preferred ending a shift the moment the handheld device went dark. It had also saved the department from several successful appeals. Mara never called it talent. She simply hated being wrong when a permanent record carried her name. Luca's technician scrolled through the 17 searches. She did query every plate connected to the cloned permits, and several unrelated cars. Mara said, "Because I was testing whether the permit numbers were part of a clerical batch problem." Luca understood first. "You looked for an innocent explanation." "Yes." Silas shifted his braced wrist. "And then you somehow ended up beside Luca's convoy tonight." Mara met his eyes. "My sister's restaurant is on Addison. Your convoy blocked the crosswalk outside it. The technician checked traffic cameras. That tracks." Silas's mouth flattened. Mara looked back at the access report. "What time does your final convoy assignment get locked?" Luca answered, instead of Silas. 11:20. "Who sees it before the drivers?" "Security captain." "Route coordinator?" "Me." "Who is security captain?" Nobody moved. Silas finally said, "I am." Mara nodded once, storing the fact rather than reacting to it. And after 11:20, Luca's voice lowered. "Vehicle order and gate assignment change. We randomize before movement." Mara looked at the active tracker sealed inside an evidence pouch on the table. Then, "Whoever is feeding your route has a problem. Old information won't be enough." Luca watched her for a long second. "Explain." "If your cars and gate change 20 minutes before departure, the person tracking you needs fresh information after the change. Otherwise, the tracker tells them where a vehicle is, but not whether you're inside it." The technician stopped scrolling. Silas's expression did not change. Luca looked at the access report again. "So someone needs the final assignment." "Yes." "And your account accessed that folder tonight. According to your system." Silas leaned back. "There it is." Mara did not look at him. She looked at the 17 searches beside her name. One plate appeared 3 times more than the others. She recognized it immediately. "Open those timestamps." The technician did. 3 dates appeared. Mara pointed at the earliest one. "That search was mine." Then the second. "That one too." She touched the third without making contact with the screen. "That one wasn't." Luca's eyes narrowed. "How do you know?" Mara looked at the time. "Because at 6:14 p.m. yesterday, my city tablet was locked in a charging dock while I was at my father's stroke clinic," Silas said. "Can anyone prove that Mara lifted her gaze?" "Yes." Then she pointed at the entire access list. "And if one search was made with my credentials while my device was somewhere else, you don't have 17 pieces of evidence against me. You have 16 questions and one person who wanted my name attached to them." By 8 the next morning, Mara had already learned that being suspected by Luca Valenti created a different kind of silence around a person. Nobody shouted at her. Nobody threatened her. That would have been easier to name. Instead, Greyhaven parking compliance felt subtly rearranged. Conversations stopped when she entered the break room. 2 co-workers glanced at the city tablet, locked beneath her arm, then looked away. Denise Park stood beside Mara's desk, with both hands folded over a printed audit notice. Internal security froze your account at 7:14, she said. You can still work disputed citations with me present, but you cannot run plate searches until they finish reviewing the access logs. Mara placed her coffee beside the monitor. Did they say who requested the review? Denise studied her. A private attorney representing Valenti Freight asked whether city credentials had been used to access vehicle information. They didn't demand anything. They asked questions. That was enough to make legal nervous. Mara pulled out her chair. Good. Denise frowned. Good. If my account was compromised, I want it frozen before whoever used it does more damage. That answer did not make Denise relax. Mara, I need you to tell me whether there is anything I'm about to discover from somebody else. Mara looked at her supervisor. I kissed Luca Valenti in the middle of Addison Street because I thought someone inside his security detail was watching his mouth. Denise blinked once. I'm sorry. It was not romantic. That is somehow not the part I'm stuck on. Mara almost smiled, but the expression disappeared when she saw the concern in Denise's face. She explained the cloned permit, the tracker, the access report, and the false search timestamp from the night before. She did not mention anything Luca had not authorized her to know about the convoy. Denise listened without interruption. When Mara finished, Denise pushed the audit notice toward her. Then we do this cleanly. No private copies. No screenshots. No calls to friends in records. If something exists in the city system, we preserve it where it is. Agreed. And if Valenti's people come in here asking for your tablet, they don't get it. Correct. Mara appreciated that more than she said. At 9:23, Denise opened a supervised municipal review session under her own credentials. Mara stood beside her but did not touch the keyboard. They started with the 3 suspicious searches tied to Mara's account. The first 2 matched her memory. The third, made at 6:14 p.m. the previous evening, carried her username, but not her usual device identifier. There, Mara said. Denise leaned closer. Every city handheld had a hardware certificate. Mara's legitimate searches came from Terminal PE-17. The disputed search came from a virtual workstation labeled Admin 04. Denise frowned. That's not a field device. Who can use it? Supervisors. It. Compliance auditors. Can I? Not without somebody assigning you temporary access. Denise checked the authorization history. Nothing showed Mara receiving such access. That was level 1 suspicion. Not innocence. Someone could still argue Mara had stolen a supervisor password or used an unattended workstation. Mara knew better than to pretend it solved anything. Check whether the search was typed manually or imported, she said. Denise opened the query details. The disputed request contained 3 plate numbers in one batch. Mara's legitimate searches were always individual, because her handheld interface forced one vehicle at a time. That matters, Denise said. It matters enough to show the story is incomplete. Mara leaned over the screen. Not enough to show who did it. Denise glanced at her. You're very calm about being framed. Mara straightened. I'm not calm. I'm trying not to ruin the useful part by being angry. At 10:12, she asked Denise to pull the permit history for GHC 4419. The crooked sticker that had led her to Luca's SUV. The record showed a reprint request, filed 9 days earlier after the original permit was supposedly damaged. That was normal. Delivery companies lost stickers all the time. The unusual part was the pickup location. The replacement had not been mailed or collected at the municipal office. It had been released through an authorized commercial fleet desk near the bonded port. Mara stared at the location code. Who uses that desk? Denise checked the partner list. Large logistics companies. Rental fleets. Municipal contractors. Valenti Freight. Denise scrolled. Yes. Mara felt the shape of the problem tighten. She had been looking for a person. The permit might have entered the system through an organization instead. Can we see who signed for the replacement? Only if the fleet partner uploaded a receipt. Denise opened the scanned document. A signature occupied the bottom line. Illegible, except for the first initial. The associated company ID belonged to Valenti Freight Security Services. Mara said nothing. Denise looked at her. Do you know whose department that is Silas Kerr's? The answer settled between them. Still not proof. Silas could supervise hundreds of legitimate permit transactions. A security department acquiring a replacement permit for a company vehicle was not criminal. Mara asked for the original request image. The scanned form showed the same permit number, same company account, same vehicle class. Then she saw the mileage field. That's wrong. Denise looked at the number. How? The gray utility van had 186,000 miles when I cited it yesterday morning. This replacement request says 86,000. Tipo. Maybe. Mara took out her planner and found the handwritten odometer estimate she recorded after the driver disputed an emissions notice. But whoever copied the vehicle data missed a digit. Denise tapped the screen. Still weak. Exactly. Mara liked Denise because she never rewarded a theory for being interesting. They moved to the second cloned permit. Different company. Different city zone. Same commercial fleet desk. Another replacement request. Another pickup through Valenti Freight Security Services. This time the signature belonged to a maintenance coordinator named Owen Pell. Mara had never heard of him. Denise searched the partner account permissions. Pell is authorized under Silas Kerr's department. Mara felt a cold line move down her back. 2 permits could still be coincidence. 3 made coincidence expensive. They pulled the 3rd. Same pattern. Replacement issued. Sama fleet disk. Same Valenti security umbrella. A different employee signed. Silas may not even know. Mara said. Denise nodded. Or he may know everything. We don't have that answer. Mara checked the time. I need to warn Luca. Denise did not move. How Mara understood the question beneath the question. If Silas was compromised, calling the number Luca had given her the night before might route through his security structure. His office. Vehicles. Assistant. And communications all touched the same system. Mara had no secure relationship with him. She had one business card in her purse containing a central Valenti Freight number. She did not use it. Instead, she called a public number she had memorized from a city permit dispute 2 months earlier, Valenti Freight's legal compliance office. I need to speak to whoever handles municipal fleet permits. She told the receptionist. This concerns a possible duplicate permit and needs independent verification. She gave her name and city extension. Then She hung up. Denise raised an eyebrow. You think legal is safer than security. I think if the message is routine and boring, whoever's watching me has less reason to stop it. It almost worked. At 11:38, a man from Valenti, compliance, called back. Before he could identify himself fully, Mara heard another voice behind him, put her through to Captain Kerr. Mara ended the call. Denise started her. That was fast. Too fast. The adversarial clue was not proof, but it was movement. Someone had been waiting for her name. Mara picked up her coat. I'm going to lunch. You're suspended from field queries. Not from common sense. I'm going across the street. Why? Mara looked through the office window at a white sedan parked in a loading zone. Its rear left reflector was cracked. She had seen that same crack yesterday outside the Valenti garage, because that car has been outside since 9:05. And the driver has not received a delivery, picked anyone up, or fed the meter. Denise followed her gaze. You think they're watching you? I think somebody wants to know who I talk to next. Mara walked downstairs, but she did not approach the sedan. She crossed into a crowded deli, used the mirrored soda refrigerator to watch the street, and bought a sandwich she did not want. The white sedan remained. At 12:17, it pulled away only when Mara returned to the municipal building. She waited 10 minutes, then checked the curb where it had parked. A cigarette butt lay near the storm drain. A paper coffee cup sat beneath the meter. Nothing useful. Mara looked up at the traffic camera, mounted above the intersection, and made her decision. She went back upstairs. Denise. Nom? I need one favor that stays entirely inside city procedure. Denise looked tired already. That sentence has never improved my day. Preserve the camera footage from 9 to 12:30 before routine overwrite. Reason: potential employee intimidation, connected to an active credential investigation. Denise stared at her for 3 seconds, then opened the preservation form. Across town. Mara did not know that Silas Kerr received a single message less than 4 minutes later. It contained no explanation, only a photograph of Mara and Denise standing beside the municipal evidence terminal, followed by 6 words: she found the fleet desk. The accusation became public before Mara understood how quickly Silas had moved. At 3:46 that afternoon, Denise asked her to come downstairs because 2 men from Greyhaven Internal Security were waiting in the municipal conference room. Luca Valenti was there too. So was Silas Kerr, his left wrist secured in a black brace. Mara stopped in the doorway. Nobody had told her Luca was coming. That bothered her more than his presence itself. Denise sat beside Mara, not behind her. The small distinction mattered. One internal security investigator placed a sealed evidence envelope on the table. Ms. Reeves. This was recovered from your assigned locker 27 minutes ago during a documented search authorized by municipal legal. Mara looked through the transparent window. Inside lay a folded printed route sheet carrying Valenti Freight letterhead. She did not touch it. That isn't mine. Silas sat at the far end of the table. Of course. Denise turned toward him. You are not part of this investigation. I am, when the document contains my employer's convoy route. Luca said nothing. His attention remained on Mara. The investigator opened a laptop. We also received a report from Valenti Freight showing repeated access from Miss Reeves's municipal credentials to vehicles later associated with their protected movements. Mara looked at Luca. You gave them your internal report. My attorney did. Before your people finished verifying whether it was accurate, Luca's expression stayed controlled. Because your account appears in it. Appears. Silas leaned back. She wants grammar to save her now. Mara turned to him. No. Timestamps. That silenced him for half a beat. Mara looked at the investigator. The route sheet in my locker. What time was it supposedly printed? The investigator checked the document footer. Yesterday, 6:21 p.m. From which system Valenti freight? What plate? Identifier appears in the convoy list. Luca's eyes shifted toward the page. The investigator read the third line aloud. Mara recognized the number immediately. That plate record was updated by Greyhaven DMV integration at 7:03 p.m. Yesterday. Denise turned sharply toward her. Are you certain? I was present when the corrected vehicle class came through because it generated a permit conflict. The investigator frowned. You're saying the document contains information that did not exist at the time printed. I'm saying verify it. Luca finally spoke. We will. Silas's mouth tightened. Or she knew the update was coming. Mara ignored him. The investigator opened a second file. There is more. A photograph appeared on the screen. Mara, in the teal dress, kneeling over Luca on wet pavement, kissing him, while Valenti's security ran toward them. The angle made it look intimate, desperate. Even. No one could see her mouth forming a warning. Another image followed. This one, showing Mara beside a parking kiosk 2 days earlier, with a black Valenti SUV in the background. Then another outside a commercial street where one of Luca's vehicles had passed. Silas did not smile. He was too disciplined for that. You tracked him before the kiss. Mara looked at Luca. I tracked permit anomalies around his vehicles. Silas said, because your people were using cloned municipal permits. My people. Silas lifted his braced wrist. Interesting choice of words. Denise cut in. Captain Kerr, if you continue editorializing, I'll ask municipal legal to remove you. Luca raised one hand before Silas could respond. Stop. The investigator turned the laptop again. A message log appeared. It showed Mara's employee account, querying a series of plates, followed by a download event tied to the final convoy folder. Then, a separate communication record from Valenti Security showed that route details corresponding to that folder had reached an enemy surveillance channel. Mara felt the case close around her. Silas had done more than plant one document. He had built layers, legitimate searches, a public kiss, a route sheet, internal logs, external corroboration. Enough truth existed inside the lie to make rejection feel irrational. Luca looked at Mara. Did you search these plates? Yes. Did you keep private notes on them? Yes. Did you approach me without invitation? Mara held his gaze. Yes. Did your account access the convoy folder? My account did. Silas spread his uninjured hand. There. Mara turned on him, and your department picked up 3 replacement permits, later used on cloned vehicles. The room changed. Luca looked toward Silas. What Mara explained, the fleet desk records. She named the 3 permits, the release dates, and the employees authorized under Silas's department. Silas did not flinch. We process hundreds of fleet permits. Exactly. Which makes it convenient. Or routine. Then, show the legitimate work orders. Silas looked at Luca. We can. Mara heard the confidence and knew immediately that he had prepared for this. Luca said, "Do it." Silas removed his phone with his right hand and sent one message. Within a minute, the investigator received 3 Valenti maintenance work orders, corresponding to the permits. Dates matched. Vehicle service numbers matched. Signatures appeared ordinary. Mara's stomach tightened. Silas had not improvised. He had built the paperwork before using the clones. That did not make him innocent. It made him competent. Luca looked at Mara again. "What do you have that survives those work orders? The city originals. They prove permits were duplicated." "Yes. They do not prove who duplicated them." "Not yet," Silas said. Meanwhile, her credentials accessed the route that was leaked. Mara turned to Luca. "Your internal logs can be altered. So can city credentials. Then verify both independently." "We are." "No, you're bringing the accusation into my workplace before doing that." Luca's face changed slightly. Not guilt. Recognition. He understood the distinction and hated that she was right. The internal security investigator cleared his throat. "Ms. Reeves, until we resolve the credential issue, the city is placing you on administrative suspension with pay. Your tablet and badge will remain secured by municipal compliance." Denise's mouth tightened, but she nodded. That was city procedure, not Valenti power. Mara removed her badge and placed it on the table. She did not hand it to Luca. She gave it to Denise. Then, Luca's security chief stepped toward Mara's purse. "We need her phone." Mara covered it with one hand. "No," Luca said. "Mara, you told me last night nobody would take my phone." That was before the access report expanded. "Then get a warrant." Silas gave a short laugh. "A warrant? Yes. If your empire wants my private messages, it can learn paperwork." Luca's eyes stayed on hers. "If there is evidence on that phone, there may be evidence of my father's medical appointments, my sister's messages, my bank account, my life. You don't get all of it because someone wrote my name on a file." Luca stood very still. Mara could see the decision forming. And for one reckless second, she hoped he would choose trust. He did not. "You cannot enter Valenti property while this is unresolved," he said. "You will not contact my drivers, garage staff, or route coordinators." The words landed harder than the suspension. Mara's face did not change. "Do you believe I sold your route?" Luca paused. That pause answered first. "I believe the evidence is serious enough that I cannot ignore it." "That wasn't my question." His jaw shifted, but he did not hide behind anger. "I don't know." Mara nodded once. She had expected powerful men to threaten her. She had not expected this one to sound reasonable while cutting her loose. Somehow that hurt more. "Then we're done here." Luca stepped toward her. "Mara, no." She picked up her purse. "You needed me when I could explain the tracker. Now you have paperwork saying I'm dangerous. So you're removing me from the room where I might challenge it. I'm protecting the investigation. You're protecting your control." Silas watched silently. Mara looked at Luca one last time. "Verify the 703 update. Verify the virtual workstation. And ask why a man with a broken wrist already had perfect work orders, ready for permits I mentioned 15 minutes ago." Silas's face finally changed. Barely. A flicker at the corner of one eye. Mara saw it. So did Luca. But it was not enough. Not yet. She turned and walked out with Denise beside her. In the hallway, Denise said. You saw something. Yes. What? Mara kept walking. He knew which permits needed defending before anyone showed him the full city list. Denise stopped. Mara did too. Can you prove that? Denise asked. Mara thought back through the sequence. She had named 3 permit numbers aloud. Silas had produced 3 matching work orders. That alone proved nothing. But earlier, during the first municipal call, only 1 permit number had been discussed before the connection dropped. Silas should not have known about the other 2 until Mara entered this room, unless somebody watching the city terminal had already warned him. Not yet, Mara said. Outside, rain had begun again. She crossed toward the employee garage on foot. No badge, no city tablet, no authority, except her own memory. Halfway down the block, a white sedan pulled away from the curb. Its rear left reflector was cracked. Mara stopped beneath the awning of a pharmacy and watched it merge into traffic. She did not call Luca. She did not call Denise. Instead, she took out her personal phone, opened the camera, and photographed the sedan's plate as it turned through the intersection. The plate number was different from yesterday. The damaged reflector was not. Mara zoomed in until the image sharpened. Then she noticed the temporary inspection sticker in the rear window. Same month, same crooked corner, different plate. Someone had begun cloning the watchers too. The white sedan changed plates twice before Mara stopped pretending it might be coincidence. She left the pharmacy awning without hurrying, crossed with the light, and walked toward the municipal employee garage as if she had noticed nothing. Her phone stayed inside her purse. She did not call Luca. She did not call Denise. She did not turn around every 10 seconds like someone who wanted a follower to know she was frightened. At the next intersection, the sedan rolled past her slowly enough for the cracked rear reflector to catch the afternoon light. Different plate. Same temporary inspection sticker with the crooked lower corner. Samikar. Mara kept walking. Her father expected her at 6 with his medication, and the ordinary fact steadied her more than anything Luca Valenti could have offered. She was suspended from city duty, not erased from her own life. She stopped at a drugstore, collected her father's prescription, bought 2 cans of tomato soup, and used the reflection in the freezer doors to confirm the sedan had parked across the street. The driver remained behind the wheel. No phone visible. No cigarette. No attempt to hide. That was almost worse. Whoever sent him wanted her to know she was being watched. Mara paid in cash and stepped outside. The sedan moved again. She changed direction toward the bus terminal. It followed. She crossed through a grocery parking lot. It followed. On the 3rd turn, Mara recognized the pattern. The driver was not trying to learn where she lived. He already knew. He was trying to see whom she contacted after losing access to the city system. That meant Luca's investigation was not the only one watching her. Mara walked another block, then turned toward the Greyhaven municipal tow yard. The public entrance closed at 5, but the employee vehicle lane remained open for impound deliveries until midnight. Mara had spent years arguing with angry drivers there. She knew every gate, camera, blind corner, and emergency call box. She called one person, Denise. Where are you? 2 blocks from Central Tow. Why? The white sedan is back. Silence. Call the police. Not yet. Mara. If I call from the street and they leave, I lose the only independent record of who has been following me. Denise's voice hardened. You are not evidence. Mara slowed at the corner. I know. That stopped Denise. Then what are you doing? Going somewhere with cameras they cannot control. Mara ended the call before Denise could argue, then entered the employee lane, on foot. The white sedan followed 20 seconds later. It had no reason to be there. That was the point. Mara stepped past the first yellow barrier and pressed the employee pedestrian release. The rolling gate began to close behind her. The sedan accelerated. Mara moved faster. Not toward the office, but toward the narrow walkway between two rows of impounded delivery vans. The sedan cleared the gate by less than a foot. The driver finally understood the problem when the second internal gate dropped automatically in front of him. He braked hard. The car stopped inside the secured corridor, boxed between two gates and three fixed cameras. Mara stepped behind a concrete bollard and hit the red call button. Central tow. Employee safety event. Preserve cameras 7 through 11. Vehicle entered restricted lane, following suspended city employee. The driver reversed. The outer gate had already locked. He tried the horn once, then stopped. Mara photographed the rear plate from behind the bollard. The driver did not get out. That told her something too. He had been instructed to observe, not confront. Two tow supervisors came out of the office with a city security officer. Only then did Mara step into the open. The driver lowered his window and produced a private investigator license. I was following a client subject. Who hired you? The security officer asked. Privileged. Mara looked at the plate. That plate was not on this car yesterday. The investigator's eyes shifted toward her for the first time. It was small. It was enough. You sure? He asked. Yes. People make mistakes. I write mistakes for a living. Denise arrived 12 minutes later, furious and breathless. She did not hug Mara. She looked at the sedan, then at Mara. You are never doing that again. Probably not. That was not agreement. Mara handed her the photograph. Preserve yesterday's footage too. Denise took it. Already requested. Across town. Luca Valenti spent the same hour discovering what Mara's absence cost him. The 1140 convoy had moved the night before, under emergency precautions. But at 9 that morning, one of his replacement vehicles was flagged by a warehouse supervisor after an unknown van appeared near a secondary staging point. Silas called it random surveillance. Luca did not. The location had been distributed to only 5 people, and Mara had never seen it. For 11 years, Luca had responded to uncertainty by narrowing access. Now narrowing access was producing nothing except a smaller circle of people he could not trust. His ribs hurt when he leaned over the conference table. The ringing in his left ear had been worse since the street incident. A thin electrical note that sharpened whenever the room became quiet. Silas stood at the far end with his left wrist braced against his chest. We replace every route coordinator, Silas said. Rotate drivers. Shut down civilian permit access. Luca looked at him. That would also shut down the people who found the first tracker. Silas's expression did not change. One parking officer found it. One parking officer found what my security team missed. The sentence stayed in the room. Luca opened the municipal audit summary. His attorney had received that morning. Mara's account had been used through admin 0, 4 at 614 p.m., while her assigned field device remained locked in a charging dock. Her father's clinic had also confirmed her presence at 603 and 638. It was not proof she had no accomplice. It was the first personal contradiction he could no longer dismiss. The accusation claimed Mara had personally accessed and sold route data during a window when two independent systems placed her somewhere else. Luca moved to the next report. Greyhaven's vehicle record update for the disputed plate, posted at 7:03 p.m. The Valenti route sheet, supposedly printed at 6:21, already contained the updated identifier. The document could not have been generated when its footer claimed technical contradiction. Someone had backdated it. Silas had dismissed that possibility yesterday as something Mara might have anticipated. Luca no longer found the explanation persuasive. Who prepared the work orders for the 3 replacement permits? Luca asked. Silas answered immediately. Maintenance generated them. Which employee Pell handled one? Ruiz another. I can pull the 3rd. You already pulled them yesterday. Silas's eyes narrowed. Because she accused my department. Before you had the city list. Silence lasted 1 beat too long. Luca felt it. Silas recovered. I knew which permits were under review because legal called security. At what time I'd have to check. Luca slid a single piece of paper across the table. Check this first. It was a routine-looking memo, directing one Valenti vehicle to a temporary holding area near Harbor Zone 6 for a supposed customs inspection. The location was false. Luca had given it only to Silas 23 minutes earlier. Silas looked down at the paper. What about it? Luca's phone vibrated. He opened a photograph sent by a trusted warehouse manager. A white security van had just parked 2 blocks from Harbor Zone 6. It belonged to a contractor used by Silas's department. Luca turned the screen toward him. Why is your contractor there? Silas glanced at it. Could be coincidence. You don't believe in coincidence. Neither do you. Luca stared at him. There it was. Personal. Technical. Adversarial. None of them convicted Silas. Together, they did something more dangerous to a man like Luca. They reopened the question. He stood carefully, one hand briefly pressing the bruise beneath his ribs. Nobody moves Mara Reeves. Silas frowned. What nobody follows her, contacts her, threatens her, offers her money, or brings her here. You think she's clean now? Luca looked at him. I think I made a decision before I had enough truth. Silas's face remained calm, but the muscles near his right cheek tightened. And if that gets you killed, then it will be my mistake. Luca left the room and called Denise Park directly. He did not ask for Mara's address. He did not ask for her phone records. He asked one question. Is she safe? Denise answered after a pause. For the moment, I need to speak with her. Then you ask her. That is what I'm doing. Denise gave him nothing for free. I'll tell her you called. Mara received the message at 7:12 while heating soup in her father's kitchen. He sat at the table doing grip exercises with his left hand, pretending not to notice how often she checked the dark window. Work trouble? He asked. Mara stirred the soup. Something like that. You going back tomorrow? Not yet. He nodded as if suspension were weather. Then don't spend the whole day being useful to people who don't deserve it. Mara looked at him. That sounds rehearsed. Physical therapist says, I need hobbies. Her phone buzzed again. Denise, Luca asked to meet. Your terms. Mara stared at the screen. Yesterday she would have answered immediately. Tonight she typed slowly. Public place. Dennis present. No security in the room. No access to my phone or city records. She sent it. The reply came 3 minutes later. Agreed. Her father watched her face. Bad news. Mara set the phone down. Not yet. At 8:40 the next morning, Luca Valenti walked into a municipal mediation room without a bodyguard, without Silas Kerr, and without asking anyone to move for him. Luca closed the mediation room door behind him and stopped 3 feet from the table. Denise sat beside Mara with a yellow legal pad and the expression of a woman prepared to eject a mafia boss from a government building if necessary. Mara almost admired his choice to come anyway. He wore a dark suit without a tie. The bruising along his ribs made one shoulder sit slightly lower than the other. His left ear angled subtly toward Mara whenever she spoke. Compensation for hearing he had not mentioned. She noticed because noticing was what she did. Luca placed a thin folder on the table but did not push it toward her. I was wrong. Mara waited. About what I treated incomplete evidence, as if it justified restricting you, before I finished verifying its source. No explanation followed. No mention of his brother. No argument that anyone in his position would have done the same. Mara appreciated that more than she wanted to. You also brought your accusation into my workplace. Yes. And let your security people treat my private life like evidence they were entitled to search. Yes. Do you still think I sold your route? Luca looked directly at her. No. Mara did not relax. Why not? Because I trust you. Denise's pen stopped. Luca continued. Because the evidence against you failed 3 independent checks. He opened the folder. Your account accessed a route, while your assigned device was docked, and your clinic records placed you with your father. The planted route sheet contained a plate update that did not exist at its claimed print time. And yesterday I gave one false staging location only to Silas. A contractor under his department appeared there 20 minutes later. Mara's eyes moved to the folder, but she did not touch it. That makes him suspicious. Yes. Not guilty. Correct. The answer mattered. Luca had learned at least one thing from her. Denise said, Why are you telling us? Luca looked at Mara. Because I need her help. Mara leaned back. There it is. I expected that response. Good. Then you also expect to know. I expect terms. She almost smiled. You're learning. Luca did not. Slowly. Mara looked through the glass panel in the door. No guards stood outside. No black SUV blocked the curb. He had followed every condition. That did not erase what happened. It made cooperation possible. What exactly do you need? Luca opened the folder fully. Inside were copies. Not originals. Each page marked with source and custodian. Port entry logs. Valenti maintenance schedules. Procurement records. Mara's attention sharpened, despite herself. The tracker found under the SUV came from a model my security department purchased legally 6 months ago for counter-surveillance training. Luca said, Silas's explanation is that one device was stolen. Can inventory confirm that? Inventory says all units are accounted for. Then the serial number removed. Mara nodded. So the device connects to his department. But not to him. Correct. Luca showed her a second page. 3 cloned permits were collected through our fleet desk. All 3 were processed under security services. Still department level. Yes. And the white sedan. Luca's expression changed slightly. What white sedan? Denise answered before Mara could. The car following her. Luca looked at Mara. Following you yesterday. And the day before. Why wasn't I? Told Mara's gaze hardened. Because you had just removed me from your property and told me I might be the leak. Luca accepted the hit without defense. What happened? Mara explained the cracked reflector. Plate changes. Temporary sticker. And tow yard trap. Luca's hand closed once on the edge of the table. Then loosened. Did the driver identify the client? No. Denise slid a preservation number across the table. But the city has footage and vehicle entry records. Luca did not reach for it. Keep them. Denise raised an eyebrow. You don't want a copy? Not yet. If my security structure is compromised, I do not want your evidence entering it before we know where the breach ends. Mara studied him. That was new too. Who knows you're here? My driver knows I entered this building. He does not know which room. My attorney knows I requested a municipal meeting. Silas does not know the subject. Your attorney safe? I believe so. Belief is how we got here. Luca nodded. Then verify him too. Mara finally pulled the port entry log closer. One maintenance van appeared repeatedly near locations later associated with cloned permits. It was assigned to Valenti Security Logistics. She traced the dates with one finger. This van was at the fleet desk 3 times. Yes. Who drives it? Rotating maintenance staff. Who assigns them? Security dispatch. Who controls? Dispatch Silas. Mara looked at the next page. And these port entries were created by Port Authority cameras. Not your system. Yes. Can Silas alter them? Not directly. Can he influence someone who can? Luca paused. Possible. Mara appreciated the answer. Then, this is level 2, at best. Denise looked between them. Meaning Mara answered. It connects Silas to means and access. It does not prove intent. Luca slid another document forward. There is also this. It was a procurement invoice for 6 trackers purchased by Valenti Security. One line contained a shipping address. Mara recognized. That warehouse is 2 blocks from the commercial fleet desk. Yes. Still not enough. No. Mara looked at him. So what are you not telling me? Luca stayed silent long enough to make Denise uncomfortable. Then he said, 11 years ago. My brother died after someone leaked a convoy route. Mara had heard rumors. Greyhaven told stories about the Valenti family, the way other cities told weather legends, with details changing according to whoever wanted to sound informed. Luca's voice carried no drama. I survived. He did not. Since then, I have required final vehicle and gate assignments to be randomized shortly before departure. Only a small number of people received the last version. Mara remembered the tracker beneath the 3rd SUV. That is why old information is useless. Not useless. Incomplete. And the person selling your routes needs the final update. Yes. How close to departure? Usually 20 minutes. Mara looked down at the port log again. The pattern sharpened. Then the trackers are not the primary method. Luca waited. Their confirmation. Mara said, someone gets the final route from inside, then uses the tracker to confirm the correct vehicle moved. Denise frowned. Why both? Because if Luca changes cars after the leak, the buyer needs to know whether the target is still in the tracked vehicle. Luca nodded once. That is our working theory. Mara looked at him. My attorney and one accountant outside security. Not Silas. No. Good. She turned to the port logs. What does Silas gain if you die? His salary does not change enough to explain the risk. Then stop looking at salary. Luca's eyes narrowed. Mara tapped the freight terminal entries. Who benefits? If Valenti loses control of these terminals, several companies. List them. Some are legitimate competitors, and some are not. Correct. Any emergency management clause? Luca studied her. How did you know? Because nobody takes this much risk for normal competition. He told her about the concession agreement. If Valenti Freight failed certain security performance conditions, or Luca became unable to exercise the company's voting authority before the emergency hearing, management rights could shift temporarily to a pre-approved operator. Mara asked for the operator list. Luca gave her 4 names. She recognized none. Denise did. Harbor Meridian Holdings. Mara looked at her. What about it? They appealed 12 parking assessments last month for vehicles registered to shell companies. Luca's expression hardened. Can we see those? Denise shook her head. Not without a legitimate municipal reason. Mara almost laughed at Luca's face. Welcome to paperwork. He accepted it. What legitimate reason exists, Mara thought. If those vehicles used commercial permits linked to the cloned batch, that creates one. Denise opened her laptop. I can check permit ownership. Not financial ownership. Do that. The search took 4 minutes. Harbor Meridian Holdings did not appear directly. 2 subsidiary vehicle fleets did. Both had received replacement commercial permits through the same bonded port fleet desk. Mara sat very still. There's your first complete layer. Luca looked at her. Explain it. Someone inside your security department used legitimate fleet infrastructure to create cloned municipal permits. Those clones helped surveillance vehicles blend near your routes. The same permit ecosystem touches companies connected to an alternate terminal operator. That does not yet prove Silas owns anything or leaked anything. But it gives the conspiracy a material direction, Denise added. And it gives us a reason to preserve the permit histories without touching Mafia records. Luca looked at Mara. Can you trace the rest? Maybe. What do you need first? You stop treating me like an extension of your security department. Agreed. Second, no one contacts my father. Agreed. Third, any city evidence stays with the city. You get certified copies only through proper channels. Agreed. Fourth, if we find evidence against Silas, I decide how my professional findings are presented. You do not turn my work into a confession extracted at gunpoint. Luca's face became unreadable. Agreed. Denise stared at him. That was easier than expected. It shouldn't have been difficult the first time. Mara heard the apology inside the sentence, but did not reward it. Not yet. Her phone vibrated on the table. Unknown number. She ignored it. It rang again. Then a text appeared. You should have stayed suspended. Beneath it was a photograph taken through the mediation room window from across the street. Mara, Luca, and Denise were all visible. Luca stood instantly. Pain flashed across his face when his ribs protested. But he moved to the window anyway. Mara caught his sleeve. Don't. He stopped. Why? Because whoever sent that wants to see who you call and where you look. Luca turned toward her. Mara pointed to the reflection in the glass door, rather than the window, across the street. A dark crossover, idled beside a delivery zone. One rear license plate screw was missing. Mara had seen the same detail on a vehicle outside the port 3 days earlier. That car, she said quietly. Do you recognize it? Luca did not turn. No. Good. Keep it that way. Denise whispered. What do we do? Mara looked at the room. The exits. The camera dome above the corridor. Then, at Luca. We give them something harmless to follow. Luca waited. He did not issue an order. Mara noticed. Denise leaves through the front carrying this folder. Mara said, "You leave 10 minutes later through the same door. I stay here, 20 minutes. Then take the employee tunnel to the records annex." Denise frowned. Why? Because if the crossover follows Luca, they care about him. If it follows me, they care about what I know. If it follows the folder, they think the evidence matters more than either of us. Luca asked. And if it splits? Mara looked at him. Then we learn there is more than one watcher. You're using us as a test. Yes. A faint line appeared at the corner of his mouth. Not amusement. Exactly. Respect. All right. He picked up the folder, removed every sensitive page, and left only blank municipal forms inside. Then he handed it to Denise. Your plan. Mara met his eyes. Exactly. 22 minutes later. The dark crossover ignored Luca Valenti completely and followed Denise Park, carrying a folder full of blank paper. Denise did not look back when the dark crossover followed her away from the municipal building. She drove exactly as Mara instructed, carried the folder of blank forms on the passenger seat, and stopped twice at ordinary intersections before entering a city-owned records annex, with cameras covering both approaches. The crossover stopped half a block away and remained there for 6 minutes. It never followed Luca. It never circled back for Mara. Whoever had sent it cared about the folder. By noon, Greyhaven Traffic Operations had preserved the footage under an employee intimidation case number, and Denise had locked the original camera files inside the city evidence system. Mara watched the playback from a municipal review terminal. The crossover's plate belonged to a rental sedan returned 3 weeks earlier in Pennsylvania. Cloned again, Denise said. Not necessarily the whole plate. Mara answered. Could be a copied registration number on another physical plate. She enlarged the rear quarter panel. A faint rectangular shadow showed where a commercial fleet decal had recently been removed. Luca stood behind her without leaning over her shoulder. He had learned to give her space. Can you identify the company? He asked. Not from this. Mara switched to footage from another camera and froze the car as it turned. The driver's door carried 2 small screw holes where a magnetic sign had once been mounted. But we can identify where it came from, if the city has seen it before. Denise ran a vehicle-shaped search through archived tow yard footage. 4 matches appeared. 3 were unrelated. The 4th showed the same crossover, entering a private maintenance lot near the bonded port 11 days earlier. Luca recognized the gate immediately. Valenti security contractor. Denise looked at him. Under Silas, yes. Mara did not celebrate. That connects the surveillance vehicle to his chain of access. It still does not prove he ordered the surveillance. Luca nodded. Level 2. Mara glanced at him. You remembered. I remember useful rules. By early afternoon. The evidence had become stronger, but not complete. Denise certified the original parking citation, showing the crooked permit on the gray utility van before Mara ever encountered Luca. Port Authority security separately confirmed entry records for the Valenti maintenance van that appeared near 3 cloned permit locations. Valenti Accounting produced the procurement invoice for the tracker model found under the SUV. The vendor confirmed the serial range. Though the specific unit's number had been removed, none of those systems answered to Silas alone. That mattered. Mara wrote 3 words on Denise's yellow pad. Means. Axis. Pattern. Then she drew an empty box beneath them. Until, Luca said. And decisive act. Mara answered. We still cannot prove he knowingly sold the final route. Luca's attorney, Miriam Holt, arrived at 3:15 with an outside accountant and 2 sealed financial files. She was in her 60s, silver-haired, careful with every word. Mara liked her immediately because Miriam did not ask whether Luca trusted her. She asked whether the chain of custody did. We reviewed the emergency terminal agreement. Miriam said, if Luca loses operational authority before the concession hearing, Harbor Meridian Holdings becomes the provisional manager. Who owns Harbor Meridian? Mara asked. That is the problem. Layers of shell companies. The accountant opened a diagram. 4 entities led through Delaware, Nevada, and an offshore trust. We can prove financial benefit to Harbor Meridian. We cannot yet prove Silas owns or controls it. Luca said, can we force disclosure at the hearing? Only if we give the Port Authority a legitimate basis before midnight. Mara looked at the clock. The emergency concession hearing was scheduled for the following evening. Silas had less than 36 hours to make Luca look unable to control his own security. Canceling the hearing would not save them. It would surrender the terminals under the emergency clause. Mara tapped the blank box again. Then, we don't need him to confess. We need him to act on something only he can know. Luca looked at her. The false location worked once. Too crude. He can explain a contractor appearing near Harbor Zone 6. She stood and walked to the whiteboard. Your final convoy assignment gets randomized shortly before movement. Who receives the last route? Normally me. Silas. Route operations. And legal, if the cargo requires authorization. Too many. We can reduce it. No. If you suddenly change procedure, he knows there's a trap. Mara drew 3 lines. Keep the process looking normal, but give 3 people 3 versions. Miriam understood first. A canary. Exactly. Mara wrote A, B, C. Same departure time. Sam convoy. Same cargo. 1 difference each final gate, Luca said. Gate A, to route operations. Gate B, to legal. Gate C to Silas. Not electronically. Mara shook her head. If his people can manipulate access logs. Paper is cleaner, Denise said. Witnessed copies. 3 sealed envelopes. Mara replied. Each photographed before sealing. Each signed across the flap by 2 witnesses. Distribution recorded on independent cameras. No one person prepares and hands out all 3. Luca looked at Miriam. Can your office handle custody? Yes. Mara did. And the real convoy route stays with Luca until after we see which gate attracts attention. Luca studied the board. What? If Silas does nothing, then we learn he's cautious, not innocent. What if he sends someone to all 3? Then we need a second discriminator. Mara considered the port map. Each route gets a different staging lane, too. Gate A uses North 2. Gate B uses River 4. Gate C uses Customs East. A rival trying to intercept you. We'll have to choose somewhere, Denise said. And if he already knows we're testing him, then he may feed us false behavior. Mara pointed to the empty box. That is why we need a fallback that doesn't depend on electronics. She asked Luca for the physical gate control rules. Port Authority used digital manifests, but still required a printed emergency seal code on each convoy packet. The code was checked visually if the network failed. Silas knew that procedure. Mara smiled without humor. Good. We make the route variants look like ordinary contingency packets. Nothing exotic. Nothing he hasn't seen before. Luca watched her build the trap, line by line. He had spent years commanding rooms. Mara noticed the effort it took for him not to interrupt. That effort mattered more than charm. At 5:20, Denise's phone rang. Her expression changed as she listened. Internal security wants Mara back at the office. Mara stiffened. Why Denise ended the call. They found another document. Luca's face hardened. What kind? A signed statement from one of your drivers claiming Mara paid him for convoy times. Silence moved through the room. Mara asked, which driver? Evan Cole. Luca turned toward Miriam. Cole disappeared from his shift this morning. Mara looked at Luca. Jan Silas control him. He reports through security. Then, this is either another frame or a real witness. Luca said, You're not going alone? Mara looked at him. Yes, I am. Mara, if you walk into my municipal investigation beside me, Silas gets exactly what he wants. A mafia boss protecting the woman accused of leaking his roots. Luca's expression tightened. And if Cole is lying, then I need him lying to the city. Not to you. Denise nodded. She's right. Luca did not like it. He accepted it anyway. Then my people stay off the block. Mara picked up her coat. At the door, Luca spoke quietly. If they suspend you permanently, Mara turned. You don't fix that with money. I know. Good. She left with Denise. 20 minutes later, internal security placed Evan Cole's signed accusation in front of Mara. He claimed she had approached him 3 weeks earlier outside a diner, offered cash for departure windows, and mentioned Luca by name before the first cloned permit had ever been found. Mara read the statement twice. Then she looked at the photograph attached to it. Cole had identified her from a still image taken the night she kissed Luca. He never met me, Mara said. The investigator frowned. How can you know? Mara pointed to the statement. Because he says I paid him on Mercer Street at 640 a.m. 3 Mondays ago, and at 640 every Monday. I was writing disability zone citations outside street. Agnes Dialysis Center. Denise's eyes sharpened. Mara continued. Not just logged into a system. Body camera. City vehicle camera. Hospital loading dock camera. 3 independent sources. The investigator reached for his keyboard. Mara stopped him with one sentence. Before you verify it, preserve Cole's original statement exactly as received. The man looked at her. Why, Mara stared at the signature. Because whoever gave you this just created evidence we can authenticate. Across the river, Silas Kerr received confirmation that Evan Cole's statement had been accepted into the municipal file. He looked at his braced wrist. Then, at the emergency hearing notice on his desk, at 5:58, he made one call. By 6:10, the Port Authority moved Luca's concession hearing forward 12 hours. The new deadline arrived before Mara reached her father's apartment. 9 the next morning. Not a Port Authority hearing. Something worse. Luca called once. Mara answered, while setting her father's medication beside the kitchen sink. The council moved the sit-down. He said. His voice sounded flatter than usual, which Mara had learned meant danger. Not calm. What council? The 5 families that guarantee freight access through Greyhaven Harbor. Valenti. Orsini, Costa, Bellomo, and Reyes. They settle disputes that cannot reach a courtroom without exposing everyone involved. Mara glanced toward her father, who sat at the table working a rubber therapy ball through two stubborn fingers, and Harbor Meridian, backed by two of those families, if they convince the council that I cannot secure the terminals. The council withdraws its guarantee before noon. The banks follow. The port contractors follow. I lose the freight corridor without a single government signature. Can you refuse to attend? Yes. Luca paused, and refusal counts as surrender. Mara closed her eyes for 1 second. Silas had not merely accelerated the timetable. He had moved the fight into a room where intimidation carried more weight than procedure. Then the sit-down stays. Yes. The Canary routes go out tonight. Miriam is preparing them. No electronic copies. None. Her father looked up. Mara turned away slightly. Who knows the plan? You. Me. Miriam. Denise knows enough to preserve the city side. Luca hesitated. Mara, tomorrow is not your municipal office. Those men will have armed security. They will insult you because they think it gives them leverage. Silas will be there. You're asking me not to come. I'm telling you exactly what the room is. Good. Now hear my answer. She lowered her voice. My name is the evidence they used to start this. I present the evidence that ends it. Silence held for a moment. All right, Luca said. But you enter beside me. Mara's expression tightened. As protection, as a warning. That sounds dangerously close to possession. Then I'll say it correctly. His voice dropped. You walk where you choose. No one in that room touches you without your permission. If someone forgets that, I remind them. Mara felt warmth move through her despite the situation. Better. Not good enough. Ask me tomorrow. At 7:30. The 3 route packets were created inside Miriam Holt's law office. A paralegal printed the variants on an offline machine. Denise witnessed the wording through a secure municipal video connection without receiving the routes themselves. A retired notary sealed each envelope. Gate A went to route operations. Gate B went to Miriam. Gate C went to Silas. Same convoy. Same departure time. Different gate and staging lane. The real route remained unwritten. Silas arrived at 8:12. His left wrist remained locked inside a rigid splint. But something else had changed. 2 men accompanied him. Not Valenti guards. Mara recognized the type immediately from the way they positioned themselves. They did not watch doors. They watched people. They wait outside. Luca said. Silas smiled. They're my drivers. They wait outside. No volumi. No negotiation. The 2 men left. Silas's gaze moved to Mara. Still here. Still observant. His eyes traveled over her slowly enough to make the insult deliberate. A parking officer sitting in on family security. Luca must be getting desperate. Mara held his gaze. You're the one who needed 3 fake permits and 2 false witnesses. The room tightened. Silas stepped toward her. Luca shifted once, not blocking Mara, but placing himself close enough that Silas had to decide whether another step was worth it. Silas stopped. Mara noticed. She also noticed something beneath his jacket. When he turned, the hard outline of a shoulder holster. Luca noticed that too. You came armed to my attorney's office, Luca said. I always carry. Not tonight. Silas's eyes cooled. You planning to search me? Luca's expression barely changed. If I were planning it, you wouldn't be asking. Silas removed the pistol with his right hand, placed it on Miriam's desk, grip first, and let her secure it. Only then did Luca hand him the Gate C envelope. Silas checked the seals. What is this contingency route? Because your little expert found another sticker, Mara answered, before Luca could... Because someone inside your security operation keeps sending outside vehicles where they should not be. Silas looked at Luca. You let her speak for you now. Luca did not look at Mara. She speaks for herself. Something flickered in Silas's face. Not anger. Calculation. He tucked the envelope beneath his right arm and left. At 10:15, Mara, Luca, Miriam, and two trusted observers entered a private monitoring room above one of Luca's bonded warehouses. 3 feeds showed gates A, B, and C. The warehouse belonged to Valenti Freight, but the cameras did not. Miriam had arranged independent feeds through outside contractors, so Silas could not erase what mattered. 10:30. Nothing. 10:40. Gate A remained quiet. Gate B showed routine trucks. Gate C showed rain striking empty pavement. Luca checked his watch. 10 minutes. Mara stared at the screens. Hold. At 10:46. Miriam's phone rang. She listened for less than 20 seconds. The Valenti security archive just went down. Luca turned. Deleted primary and mirrored route logs. Somebody used executive-level maintenance access. Silas. Or someone with access through his office. Mara kept watching the feeds. A second call came before anyone could react. One of Luca's captains had been found unconscious inside a vehicle bay. Gabriel Stone. 2 broken ribs. A dislocated shoulder. And a flash drive placed inside his jacket containing copied route logs. Mara looked at Luca. Silas stopped planting paper. Luca's face became still. He's hurting people now, because paper stopped being enough. Another message arrived. A photograph of Gabriel on a warehouse floor. Blood along his temple. Followed by a sentence from an unknown number. Your next expert won't get a warning. Luca's entire posture changed. The restrained businessman disappeared. Mara saw the Mafia king. Everyone else feared. Give me the phone, he said. Mara closed her fingers around it. No. His eyes cut to hers. Mara, that message is trying to make you react. He threatened you. Yes. And he wants you angry enough to destroy the trap. Luca took one step closer. There are things I do not gamble with. I am not a thing. His expression changed immediately. No. She held his gaze. Then don't turn protecting me into controlling me. Silence. His hands opened at his sides. Tell me what you need. The correction came fast enough to matter. Mara looked back at Gate C. I need you dangerous after we have proof. Not before. At 10:53, all 3 gates remained apparently clear. Then, Mara noticed a maintenance truck entering the edge of Gate C's camera. She asked Miriam to rewind. The truck's temporary contractor credential had been generated at 7:54 p.m. 18 minutes before Silas received the Gate C envelope. The canary had not caught the leak. It had exposed preparation that existed before distribution. Then Denise called. Harbor Meridian's fleet subsidiary had requested the cloned temporary permits. Worse. A new filing listed Gabriel Stone as a paid consultant. When was Stone added? Mara asked. Denise checked. Yesterday afternoon, after I named the fleet desk. Luca understood. Silas beat him and planted the financial link before the sit-down. Mara nodded. Maybe. We still prove it. She returned to the contractor credential. A maintenance priority code sat beside the authorization field. The same code appeared on every cloned permit pickup. Miriam traced the issuing authority. Security Captain's Office. Mara leaned closer to the screen. Silas planned coverage for all 3 gates before tonight because he expected us to change routes. Luca said. So he knew we would test him. Yes. How Mara looked at the destroyed security archive. Gabrielle's beating. And the threat on her phone. Because he has another source near us. The lights in the monitoring room went out. Emergency power came on 3 seconds later. One of the outside observers reached for the door. Luca stopped him. Nobody opens that. A gunshot cracked from the warehouse floor below. Then another. Mara did not move toward Luca. She moved toward the wall map. Service, stairwell. Luca looked at her. What? The main elevator is controlled by Valenti security. If Silas has another source, he expects us to use it. She pointed to a maintenance stairwell leading through the adjoining records bay. That route exits behind municipal tow fencing. Luca gave one order to Miriam. Take the evidence copies. Then he turned to Mara. You lead. They reached the service stairwell as glass broke somewhere below them. A man appeared at the far end of the corridor. Mara recognized him immediately as one of Silas's supposed drivers from Miriam's office. He raised a pistol. Luca shoved Mara behind the concrete corner and fired once. The man dropped the weapon and collapsed against the wall, clutching his shoulder. Luca did not approach him. He looked at Mara instead. Can you move? Yes. Then move. They descended 2 flights while alarms sounded above them. At the bottom, Mara stopped. Through the wired glass door, she saw a dark sedan idling beside the loading bay. Same missing plate screw as the crossover that had followed Denise. That car has been in every layer, she said. Luca followed her line of sight. Silas is not registered to him, but whoever drives it knows where the evidence goes. Mara photographed the vehicle through the glass as it pulled away. The plate was new. The physical car was not. She looked at Luca. Tomorrow. We don't just bring the root trap. What else? Mara stared at the photograph. We bring every room Silas thought he controlled into the same room with him. The Underworld Council met inside the old Belomo social club at 9 the next morning. No phones crossed the inner door. No uniformed police stood outside. 5 families controlled the room through reputation. Armed men. And agreements older than half the businesses they protected. The sit-down existed because none of them trusted courts with their real disputes. A council ruling carried no statute number. But it could close a dock, cut off a bank, intermediary, deny crews access to territory, and turn an empire into an island before dinner. Mara entered beside Luca because she had chosen to. His hand rested lightly at the center of her back until they reached the table. Then disappeared. He had promised guidance, not ownership. Silas sat across from them, his left wrist splinted, his right hand free. 3 council principals watched him without warmth. Gabriel Stone's empty chair had been placed against the wall as a reminder that violence had already begun. The Belomo chairman, Carlo Belomo, opened the meeting. We are here because Valenti freight may no longer be secure enough to hold the Greyhaven corridor. Harbor Meridian says it can take emergency control today. Valenti says the breach came from inside and names his own captain. Silas spoke first. I named the parking officer. He looked directly at Mara. A city employee accessed Luca's vehicles, followed his movements, kissed him in public, and then inserted herself into his security. She is either a leak or a distraction. Either way, no. Serious organization builds its defense around her. Several men at the table looked toward Mara. Luca did not answer. Mara had asked him not to. Carlo said, "Miss Reeves, you are not family. No. You are not security. No. Then why are you here?" Mara placed one certified photograph on the table. "Because I noticed the first thing his security missed." She began with the original city citation, showing the crooked permit before she ever had contact with Luca. Denise had prepared sealed certifications before the meeting and remained outside the Underworld venue entirely. Mara presented only copies whose originals stayed in municipal custody. She showed the cloned permit on the Valenti SUV. Then, the replacement permits released through the bonded port fleet desk under Valenti security priority codes. Silas leaned back. "My department handled hundreds." "Correct." Mara showed the independent port entry records placing Valenti security maintenance vehicles near multiple cloned permit locations. "Still department evidence." "Correct." One council principal. Mateo Reyes frowned. "You keep weakening your own case." "No, I'm telling you exactly where each piece stops." Mara produced the tracker procurement invoice. "Means. Access. Pattern. Not yet intent." Silas almost smiled. At least she understands she has nothing. Mara looked at him. "Then we move to the frame." She showed the ADMIN-04 audit, proving her credentials were used from a virtual workstation, while her field tablet remained docked, and clinic records placed her beside her father. She showed the backdated Valenti route sheet, containing a city plate identifier that did not exist at its printed time. Then, she placed Evan Cole's statement beside 3 independent videos disproving the meeting he claimed. "Someone built a story around real pieces of my life," Mara said. "My searches were real. The kiss was real. My interest in the permits was real. The betrayal was not." Silas's voice sharpened. "And Gabriel Stone." Mara placed the Harbor Meridian consultant filing on the table. "Added yesterday afternoon, after I identified the fleet desk. Maybe because Stone knew he was caught. Maybe." Silas's eyes narrowed. Mara continued, "Which is why his name still does not prove yours." Carlo Bellomo looked impatient. "Then stop circling." Mara nodded toward Miriam. The attorney placed a sealed financial certification on the table. Harbor Meridian's emergency management structure included a 12% revenue participation for Kerr Strategic Risk LLC. Silas's taxpayer identifier and notarized signature sat beneath the agreement. The room changed. Silas did not. "Legal consulting," he said, "predates my position. It establishes motive." Mara answered, "Not the leak." Mateo Reyes leaned forward now. "You have one more step." "Miss Reeves." "Yes." Mara looked at Luca. He gave the smallest nod. Miriam produced 3 sealed route custody records from the previous night. Then, 3 new packets, created at 8:32 that morning, after final vehicle randomization. Route operations received North Lane 3. Miriam received River Lane 1. Silas received Customs East Lane 6. No one at the table had received copies. Mara placed an independent contractor timestamp beside the custody sheet. At 8:48, a Harbor Meridian vehicle entered Customs East, using the exact staging lane. Only Captain Kerr received 16 minutes earlier. Silas's chair shifted. Luca could have leaked my packet himself. That is why Luca was not assigned to the vehicle described in your packet. Mara placed the final document on the table. Vehicle 14 was empty. Silence followed. 3 surveillance cars appeared at Customs East 6 minutes later. All 3 carried cloned registrations. They converged on an empty vehicle at the only location tied to your packet after randomization. Silas stared at Luca. "You built this." Luca spoke for the first time. "She did," Mara continued before Silas could answer. "And when the first trap began closing, Captain Stone was beaten. Valenti records were destroyed. And I received this." She placed a printed copy of the threat on the table. "Your next expert won't get a warning. The vehicle used to follow the evidence from the municipal office matched the physical damage on the sedan that brought one of your gunmen to the warehouse last night." Silas stood. 2 council guards moved instantly. Carlo raised one hand. "Carlo, sit down." Silas did not. His face had finally lost its control. "You brought a civilian into this room to accuse me with parking tickets." Mara looked at him. "No. You lost to parking tickets." The insult landed exactly where she intended. Silas moved faster than anyone expected. His right hand swept under his jacket. Not toward a gun. Council protocol had required weapons surrender. He pulled a narrow folding knife taped inside the lining of his sleeve. Mara stepped backward and caught the edge of the chair rather than freezing. Silas came around the table straight for her. "You should have stayed invisible." Mara grabbed the heavy glass water pitcher and threw it into his path. It shattered against his forearm and forced him sideways. That 1 second was enough. Luca crossed the space between them. He caught Silas's knife wrist, drove it against the table edge, and twisted until the knife fell. Silas struck him in the ribs. Luca absorbed it, then hit him once in the throat and once across the mouth. Silas crashed into a chair but kept coming. He reached for Mara again. Luca's restraint disappeared. He seized Silas by the collar, slammed him face first onto the council table, and pinned the already injured left arm behind his back. Silas cursed and tried to rise. Luca bent the braced wrist downward. The splint cracked. Silas screamed. Nobody in the room moved. Luca's voice was quiet. "You framed her. You followed her father's home. You beat one of my captains. You sent a gunman into my warehouse, and now you reached for her in front of 5 families." He bent the wrist another fraction. "You wanted them to remember what I am." Silas's breath broke. Luca leaned closer. "Now they do." Mara stepped forward. "Luca." He stopped instantly. That mattered more than the violence. She did not have to shout. He looked at her. "Enough." Luca released Silas and stepped back. Council guards took over, forcing Silas to his knees and binding his hands. Mara met Luca's eyes. He was breathing hard. Blood marked one knuckle. Rage still lived in him. But he had given her the final word. Carlo Bellomo looked from Silas to the evidence spread across the table. Kerr breached a family guarantee, sold route information, assaulted protected personnel, and brought outside shooters into Valenti property. He looked at Harbor Meridian's representatives. "Your emergency claim is dead. Your corridor access is frozen until ownership is reviewed," Matteo Reyes added. "Any crew moving against Valenti freight on Kerr's information loses council protection." Silas lifted his head from where the guards held him. "This isn't over." Mara looked at him. "For me, it is." Then, she turned to the council. My municipal record gets corrected. My supervisor gets written confirmation that I was framed. No family contacts my father. No one uses my city credentials again. Those are my terms for any further cooperation. Luca looked at the 5 principals. Agreed. Carlo raised an eyebrow. You agree fast? Luca's gaze stayed on Mara. I learned slowly. The council ruling stood. Harbor Meridian lost its emergency backing. Silas lost his authority. And the woman he had expected everyone to dismiss walked out of the room carrying the evidence that broke him. Luca did not touch Mara until they were outside the Bellomo Social Club, and she reached for him first. His right hand was bruised and swelling. Blood had dried along one knuckle. She took his wrist gently and turned it beneath the morning light. You need ice. I've had worse. Mara gave him a look. That line only works once. A faint smile appeared. But the violence had not completely left his face. 3 Valenti men waited beside the cars. None approached. Luca had ordered distance before the sit-down. Mara appreciated that he remembered, even now. Your ribs? She asked. Still attached. That was not medical terminology. I'm surrounded by experts today. She almost laughed. Then remembered the knife. Her body caught up to the danger all at once. Her fingers tightened around Luca's wrist. He noticed. Mara. I'm fine. No. His tone was firm without being commanding. You're standing. That is not the same thing. She looked at him. And what are you planning to do about it? Luca stepped closer, but stopped before entering her space. Whatever you ask. She breathed out slowly. Walk me to the car. His hand hovered near her lower back. May I? Mara nodded. Yes. Only then did he touch her. The contact was warm and possessive, enough for every man on the sidewalk to understand she mattered to him. But light enough that she could step away whenever she wanted. One of the Valenti guards opened the rear door. Mara stopped. I'm not getting into a car surrounded by 6 armed men. Luca looked at the guard. Everyone, except the driver, takes another vehicle. No hesitation. Within seconds. The sidewalk cleared. Mara shook her head. You really do enjoy giving orders. Not to you. Keep practicing that distinction. Every day. At her father's apartment building. Luca did not ask to come upstairs. He remained beside the car, while Mara called to say she was safe. When she ended the call, he said, Silas's people know where he lives. That worries me too. I can put men outside. Mara's expression changed. Luca corrected himself immediately. I can offer security. You choose whether it exists and where they stand. 2 men. Across the street. No weapons visible. They never enter the building. They never speak to my father unless he speaks first. Done. And this ends when I say, it ends. Yes. Mara studied him. That sounded painful. It is. Good. His mouth curved. You enjoy this? A little. The council consequences unfolded over the next 48 hours. Harbor Meridian's emergency backing collapsed. 2 families withdrew their guarantees entirely after learning Silas had used their roots to enrich his own proxy company. Gabriel Stone survived and gave a limited statement about the assault without becoming the case's miracle witness. The municipal investigation cleared Mara's account after the independent credential and timestamp evidence was submitted through council. Denise received written confirmation that Valenti Security had circulated compromised information before verification. Luca insisted the correction use his name. He did not hide behind the organization. Valenti Freight paid Mara's documented legal costs with no non-disclosure agreement and no personal condition. Then Luca did something his own people found more shocking than breaking Silas's wrist twice. He issued a standing order that Mara Reeves was not to be monitored, escorted, photographed, researched, or contacted through Valenti channels, unless she personally requested it. One captain asked. Even for protection, Luca answered. Especially for protection. Mara heard about the order from Miriam. She did not thank him immediately. She waited until he came to see her 5 days later at the municipal parking office. He stood outside on the sidewalk, rather than entering. Dark coat. No entourage beside him. A black sedan waited half a block away with one driver. Mara finished a disputed citation, handed the paperwork to an angry delivery driver, then walked toward Luca. You're parked, legally. I prepared. Growth. His eyes moved over her navy uniform. I like this better than the teal dress. Mara folded her arms. Careful. Not because of the dress. His gaze stayed on her face. Because this is where you look like you own the ground under your feet. That landed harder than flattery should have. You came here to compliment municipal uniforms. No. Why are you here? Luca looked toward the city traffic around them. I wanted to see you. That sounds almost normal. I am attempting it. Mara smiled. Poorly. I was also told I am not allowed to send flowers. Correct. Or gifts. Correct. Or a car. Absolutely not. Then I am running out of traditional criminal courtship options. She laughed. Luca's expression softened. Dinner. Mara considered him. Is that an order? No. A favor no. He stepped closer. A request from a man who thinks about you too often and has no intention of pretending otherwise. There it was. Possession without claim. Desire without entitlement. Mara lifted an eyebrow. Too often. At breakfast. In meetings. During security briefings. Once, while a man was explaining warehouse insurance. Tragic. Extremely. She let him wait. Friday. 7. Where Rosie's. Luca looked almost offended. The diner. You survived the council. You can survive meatloaf. No private room. No. No guards at the table. No. Can they sit across the street? Mara stared at him. Luca Sihil. I am negotiating. One car. Far side of the block. Agreed. Friday arrived quietly. Luca entered Rosie's at 7:04 and found Mara already inside. He wore no tie and no visible weapon. He slid into the booth only after she nodded. 4 minutes late. I circled the block. Why parking signs? She laughed. You own freight terminals and parking defeated you. I considered having them removed. Luca. I considered it. I did not do it. Excellent restreint. Dinner lasted nearly 2 hours. They talked about her father. Denise. Luca's brother. And what it meant for a man who had built survival around control to be told no by someone he could not intimidate. When they stepped outside, the street was nearly empty. Luca stopped beside the curb. There is something I need to say before I ask you anything. Mara waited. When Silas came at you, I wanted to kill him. She believed him. I know. I stopped because you told me to. I know that too. Do not mistake that for weakness. Mara's expression softened. I don't. Luca stepped closer. And do not mistake what I feel for ownership. I want every man in my world to understand that threatening you means dealing with me. But what you do, where you go, who you become that stays yours. Mara looked at him for a long moment, possessive. Yes. Controlling, trying very hard not to be. Better answer. He lifted one hand but did not touch her. May I? Mara looked at his fingers. Then at his face. Where your waist. You ask very specific questions for a Mafia king. I've had a demanding teacher. Mara stepped into him. Yes. His hand settled at her waist. Firm enough to feel protective. Gentle enough to remain a question she could revoke. He looked down at her. May I kiss you? The first kiss had hidden a warning. This one hid nothing. Mara curled one hand into the front of his coat. Yes. Luca kissed her slowly, without urgency. And when Mara pulled back first, he let hair. His forehead rested lightly against hers. I am still going to worry when you walk into dangerous rooms. You're allowed. I am still going to want guards near you. You can want whatever you like. You enjoy that sentence too much. Very much. Luca smiled. Mara touched the bruise, still fading across his knuckles. You also don't get to break every wrist that irritates me. Every wrist, Luca. Fine. His hand tightened once at her waist. Not to keep her there, but because she had chosen to stay. Only the ones holding knives. Mara laughed against his shoulder. For the first time, Luca Valenti looked less like a king claiming territory and more like a dangerous man, learning that the woman beside him was not territory at all. She was there because she wanted to be. And that made her choice worth more to him than obedience ever had. If Mara's fight to protect the truth stayed with you, subscribe. Like this story. And tell me in the comments which moment hit you hardest. Share it with someone who loves Mafia romance, built on courage, respect, and earned trust.